Woo boy, that last Star Wars film sure was something, wasn't it? And that's not to knock those who enjoyed it. If you did, well, this video obviously isn't going to agree with you. But for the scores of fans let down by The Rise of Skywalker, discussion has already moved into, oh, what could have been territory. Longtime fans won't need reminding that the road to Episode 9 wasn't exactly what you might call smooth. Lucasfilm had originally tapped Jurassic World director Colin Trevorrow to helm the 9th and final installment in the newly dubbed Skywalker saga, but there was trouble behind the scenes. These issues were in turn exacerbated by the passing of Carrie Fisher, who was meant to take a key role in Episode 9 as General LEIA. Lucasfilm soon decided that Trevorrow had to go and replaced him with Episode 7 director JJ I've never been great at endings Abrams. And while it was clear Episode 9 had to overcome a great many hurdles, the stage was still set for a great conclusion after a rousing entry from Rian Johnson with Episode 8. Bite me. Sadly, that great conclusion has proven elusive because, in designing a crowd pleaser to appease all Star Wars fans, the director has sadly left the sequel trilogy more disparate than ever before. Episode 9's problems are myriad and frustrating, but they were so easily avoidable. So yeah, let's get into this. I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture, and here are 10 simple fixes that would have saved Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Number 10. The Emperor has got to go. The Rise of Skywalker is a uniquely frustrating story, not just in the sense that it's a duff conclusion to the sequel trilogy, but because it sort of breaks Star Wars as a whole? Let me explain. The Emperor is the source of most of the film's most debilitating issues, literally from the first moment. The dead speak is top-tier ham, but once it becomes clear that the character's return occurred off-screen, and flossing in Fortnite no less, the story enters freefall. KYLO Ren tracks the Emperor to the Sith homeworld of Exegol using a Sith Wayfinder. The totally not holocron, even though it is MacGuffin, he retrieves at the start, and dear old Palpatine promptly reveals that his latest scheme has been his endgame all along. He kindly reveals to the audience that he made Snoke, and that's meant literally. There's a tube of Snokes just lying around just because. And Palpatine then explains how he's been seducing KYLO to the dark side all along, mimicking the voices of Vader and Snoke. Also, he definitely has children now, and raise a Palpatine. We literally do not care at this point, clearly. The problem with the Emperor in Episode 9 isn't just that he clearly has his own version of the come to bed eyes, it's that he completely invalidates the entire Skywalker saga. Not only does it not make a single lick of sense, it also invalidates Anakin Skywalker's sacrifice in Return of the Jedi, arguably the most important moment in the entire series. Ultimately, the Emperor's return breaks the inner logic of the Star Wars mythos. It renders decades of material inconsequential and also encourages the rise of Skywalker's worst offense, backpedaling on The Last Jedi's inspiring message to reduce Star Wars to a tale of inheritance between two families. The galaxy far, far away has never felt smaller. Number 9. Find a different role for General LEIA. Carrie Fisher was an incredible presence, and a talent who left us all way too soon. And while it might seem tactless to immediately focus the impact of her loss on Star Wars, it is sadly also apt post-Episode 9. LEIA was always meant to play a key role in Episode 9, but more than a few eyebrows were raised when it was announced that Fisher's role in the film would be completed with unused footage from The Force Awakens. The actual process is nowhere near as seamless as was originally suggested, and it means that all the scenes with LEIA in The Rise of Skywalker are really uncomfortable to sit through. Nowhere more so than her corpse is left lying around on the Rebel base for ages before it disappears. I know. Audiences tend to decry off-screen deaths on a regular basis, but given the circumstances of Fisher's passing, is it not possible that would have been the better option here? Episode 9 could have opened with a longer passage of time between it and The Last Jedi, during which she would have passed on, and they still would have been able to retain Leia's role as Rey's new master. In her place could have emerged Rose Tico and Cadel Connix as the Resistance's main leaders. That way you actually have a meaningful arc for Kelly Marie Tran's character, who was wasted in the finale by the way, and a nice way of honouring Fisher's legacy, with Connix being portrayed by daughter Billie Lourd. Number 8. Establish the Knights of Ren and Hux as threats to KYLO Ren's leadership. Nixing the Emperor from The Rise of Skywalker obviously leaves the film with a huge vacuum. Someone needs to fill the role of the antagonist, and if it isn't going to be Ben Solo, then it has to be someone else. Instead of bringing back the Emperor and, breaking Star Wars in two, Abrams and Terrio should have looked inward at the tools they already had at their disposal. The Last Jedi had maintained the rivalry between Domhnall Gleeson's General Hux and Adam Driver's Kylo Ren, while the Knights of Ren were still a looming presence in the distance. Why not have one, or both, plot to overthrow KYLO as the supreme leader of the First Order in a coup of sorts? Perhaps they're frustrated by Ren's reluctance to be as ruthless as he once was, following the seed of doubt planted by Rey and Luke in Episode 8, and they decide he's no longer fit to be leader. Further to that, The Rise of Skywalker makes no effort to explain where the Knights have been in the last two films and turns Hux into a spy in a way that fundamentally contradicts his character's fanaticism. With the help of another influence, which I'll get to in a second, Hux and the Knights' attempt to oust KYLO from power would push him further towards the light. Cue a big epic confrontation between the Resistance and the First Order, a redeemed Ben getting to interact with Rey for much longer, and a conclusion that actually draws upon the previous two films instead of one that feels derivative and nonsensical. Number 7. Luke Skywalker haunts Ben as a Force ghost. One of the all-time great quotes from The Last Jedi comes when Luke, or at least an apparition of Luke, confronts Kylo Ren on Crate. "Strike me down in anger and I'll always be with you, just like your father." This wasn't meant to be superfluous dialogue, it was an omen. The Rise of Skywalker expands upon this somewhat when Ben converses with the memory of Han Solo within the wreckage of the second Death Star, but it's only one scene. Even outside of this hypothetical Episode 9 I've just concocted, would it not have made sense to keep that theme going in The Rise of Skywalker? All Luke does is appear on Act 2, where Rey experiences his entire arc in the space of minutes, and then to scream internally as she buries his father and sister's lightsaber on a planet they all hated. Having Luke stay with Ben as his internal conflict escalates would have really helped sell the momentum of his eventual redemption, whilst also providing a clever inversion of the typical Force Ghost dynamic audiences have grown accustomed to over the previous entries. Number 6. How did Luke's sacrifice inspire the galaxy? Democratizing the Force was a big thing in The Last Jedi, and it's something that's sadly absent in The Rise of Skywalker. Episode 8's ending showed Luke's sacrifice on Crate inspiring new generations of Force users across the galaxy, with an anonymous boy on Canto Bight summoning his broom using that famous mystical aura. The intent here is to show that while the galaxy didn't heed the Resistance's cry for help in The Last Jedi, a new generation had been inspired by Luke's story and were ready and waiting to one day rise up and finish what he started. No effort was made to even vaguely explore that theme in The Rise of Skywalker, with the Resistance only gaining new allies at the end because I guess more people will listen to Lando than the soldiers stranded on Crate. Episode 9 tries to conjure a moment as hopeful as the one seen during Episode 8's conclusion, but it holds no thematic weight. Everyone assembles because it's do or die at this stage, and while there is a general sense of desperation to the proceedings, it all feels a little too easy. Number 5. Rey builds her new lightsaber from the start. The Skywalker lightsaber is a big deal in the sequel trilogy. It's depicted in The Force Awakens as a powerful reminder of the Jedi's nobility, and of Luke Skywalker's heroics especially. At the same time, Kylo Ren desires the weapon as his birthright, a weapon that belongs to him that was once wielded by Darth Vader, his grandfather. The Last Jedi also does something really interesting with the weapon. Kylo still covets it, but director Rian Johnson uses Anakin's saber as a narrative device to explore the limiting and occasionally toxic effects of nostalgia. Luke no longer has any reverence for the weapon and uses it to taunt Kylo during their duel on Crate. It's dead clever, and if the point was for our heroes to move past material possessions, then it was ultimately lost on Abrams' film, which saw Rey reforge the weapon, only to build her own in the last 5 seconds of the film. We know Abrams is a sucker for retreading the original trilogy at this point, so why not give Rey her new golden lightsaber at the beginning of the film? As it did in Episode 6, it would illustrate how our main protagonist has finally become their own Jedi, one not beholden to any one legacy. Number 4. Make FINNPOE an actual thing. Whether you call them Storm Pilot or FINNPOE, it's hard to think of a ship in recent years that has exploded into the public consciousness with as much love and energy as the one revolving around Finn and Poe Dameron. Oscar Isaac and John Boyega possess palpable chemistry on screen, and while both actors were evidently eager to explore that angle together, Isaac in particular, it never came to fruition. True LGBT representation is almost impossible to come across in mainstream Hollywood. The Rise of Skywalker includes Star Wars' first gay kiss, but more time is devoted to the giant space slug getting a hook, never mind the fact that two characters who do smooch barely have an on-screen presence. Episode 9 also goes to great lengths to hint at heterosexual relationships for both Finn and Poe, with the former evidently interested in Rey, and the latter having a romantic link with Zori Bliss. Whatever, fans and myself have already taken the latter element as a basic confirmation that Poe is bi, and that means he and Finn are still available. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Look, all I'm saying is Isaac was game, Boyega was game. Disney, Abrams, and Terrio should have pursued it as a genuine arc. Number 3. Have Ben see the light much earlier. The problem with Ben Solo's redemption in The Rise of Skywalker is that it just arrives way too late to make a profound impact. Redeemed Ben shows up on Exegol and has that brilliant moment where Anakin's lightsaber gets force-beamed into his hand by Rey, and there's even a kiss between them too. But then he dies and fades away, evidently terrified at the thought of having to answer for his years serving a tyrannical military outfit. There's not much to extrapolate from Ben's demise other than that it just feels really lazy, not just in the sense of it being a retread of Vader's sacrifice in Episode 6, but also because the audience doesn't get to see Ben reckoning with his own actions when he turns to the dark side. There's a much more interesting story out there where Ben turns early on and has to earn the trust of the Resistance. Instead, we got a 5-minute redemption that ended with him saying "peace out" and fading from existence. So, following on from the thread of Kylo Ren being ousted from the First Order by Hux and the Knights of Ren, this version of Episode 9 would have Ben's redemption occur much earlier on in the story, perhaps the beginning of the second act. That way you open up a whole new dynamic, get more time between him and Rey to help sell their connection further, and are ultimately left with a more edifying conclusion to his arc. Number 2. Get rid of all the fan service. The Rise of Skywalker well and truly goes off the deep end with this. The Emperor is back, and he has a super secret fleet that has mini Death Star cannons attached to their underbellies. Rey's a Palpatine. Look, here's a flashback to Luke trading Leia. We're back on Tatooine again, I don't know why, but here's a new lightsaber that appears for 2 seconds for story. Oh, want to see Luke lift an X-Wing like Yoda did in Empire Strikes Back? Well boy, are you in for a treat. Ugh. It's actually groan-inducing at times, and while homage is part and parcel of pretty much every Star Wars film, none have offered such a banal retread of the series' past tropes or such a capitulation to online speculation to the point where fans have joked that The Rise of Skywalker was written and directed by Reddit. Number 1. Keep Rey, just Rey. There's an awful lot that's wrong with The Rise of Skywalker, but undoubtedly its most depressing element pertains to Rey's lineage. Fans had speculated relentlessly after The Force Awakens regarding Rey's parents, who they might be and why they left her on Jakku, with the Kenobi, Skywalkers, Solos, and yes, even Palpatines being optioned as potential families. It seemed as though that's where the series was going to go, but then The Last Jedi came along and swept the rug from right underneath everyone's feet, revealing that Rey was just Rey. Her parents were scrappers who sold her for money. There was no happy family, no grand lineage to unearth. She was a nobody, and in a franchise ruled and governed by family ties, that was truly refreshing. It didn't matter where Rey came from. She was a hero same as any Skywalker or Kenobi, and she was her own person too. The Rise of Skywalker, tragically, opted for something completely different. The film discloses that she actually has Palpatine's power. It's not her own, it's the Emperor's, and yes, it's about as bad as it sounds. Sure, there's a nice enough message to extrapolate here about how you're able to choose your own family, but it ends on such a dull note. Rey declares herself a Skywalker, and it doesn't feel triumphant so much as it does painful. Rey's legacy should just be that she was Rey. Just Rey. She doesn't need to take the Skywalker name to show that she's found a new family. We know that already. Just let her be Rey. Surnames need not apply.